All right, Nick, it's been a little bit, but it's time to talk about Notre Dame football once again. Love talking about Notre Dame football. We love what Coach Marcus Freeman is doing over there in South Bend. And I think they're about to do something really special and something that is also very hard to do. Let's get into the article and we talk about it more on the other side. This is from Slap the Sign. It says, when Derek Meadows was set to announce his commitment last weekend, it looked like Notre Dame football lost the rights for one of its top wide receiver targets. It seemed as though it was another loss for the Irish in a period that's been tough. However, Derek Meadows changed his mind, at least about when he's announcing his commitment. It's now coming this weekend, and it looks like the Golden Domers are back in front. On3 Shea Dixon is the latest analyst to weigh in on where the Irish and Tigers stand for Meadows. And like most other talking about the situation with just a few days before his announcement, Dixon believes the race is between Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman. However, Dixon also said that while he thinks LSU was the front runner last weekend, the delay might have been enough for Notre Dame to set things right. Dixon now believes Meadows was talked to enough that he's looking at South Bend as his landing spot once again. Nick, this is absolutely huge for Notre Dame. I cannot tell you enough how big this is. I'm curious, though, what your thoughts are on this one. But Notre Dame fans, in the comment section below, this will probably be the biggest recruiting flip in a long time for Notre Dame. So let us know in the comments below, what is a guy who flipped to Notre Dame that really surprised you in the recruiting process? A guy you thought was out of the woods, you thought he was going to a different team, but all of a sudden something like this happens and he flips back to come to the Fighting Irish. Let us know a guy that's flipped to Notre Dame that really surprised you in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on Meadows potentially coming to South Bend?
I think it would be absolutely massive, right? And I think it's a big credit to Coach Freeman and his entire staff. I think everyone had given up and said he's likely going to LSU. It felt like Brian Kelly had just gotten a big time recruit that Notre Dame had been really putting a lot of time and effort into. And look, when you invest a lot in a recruit, losing him always hurts, but it hurts even more when a guy like Brian Kelly, of course, formerly of Notre Dame, being the head man there, takes him out of your hands. But the fact that this is flipped and now all odds are indicating that Notre Dame is actually going to flip him into their corner and pull off this massive move. Look, I think it's a credit to Coach Freeman and his staff, right? They don't get the credit they deserve for being a very solid, steady, consistent recruiting program. Other programs have, the bigger names are a little flashier, maybe a little bit better at PR sometimes. But Marcus Freeman and his staff, they do a solid job consistently recruiting, whether it's at the top with the five-star guys like here, whether it's with solid 3 stars, whether it's some 4 stars, or just using the transfer portal strategically. They were a very effective talent building organization that they have in South Bend. And I think a lot of credit has to be given to that staff. They're persistent, they're consistent, and they just don't ever they never lose momentum. You always talk about programs that have a bad week or two in recruiting and then it just tailspins. They fall apart. Like the Wisconsin Badgers were like that. Elite program, a few bad weeks of recruiting a few years ago, and then the recruiting program just entirely collapses. The USC Trojans, right? They came into the offseason with a lot of momentum, right? They're looking like, hey, they're making a lot of good moves in recruiting. They have one bad week in like February, and now that's evolved into like the last 4 months have just been a total debacle for the USC Trojans. Notre Dame, they have a few bad days. They have a few bad weeks. It doesn't derail them. Their coaching staff just keeps working, keeps grinding. And that's a credit to, I think, the leader, Coach Freeman. And I think pulling off this move would just be the latest big win for him in terms of making sure this program has a strong opportunity to excel in the future.
Yeah, Nick, and I think you're right. And I think that's the key here is Notre Dame. They have had a few rough weeks here. But the thing is, what the big programs do, like you said, they bounce back. You put your big dogs on it. I know that you got Mike Brown out there recruiting this guy, and Meadows, I'm sure he likes him. I mean, he's the wide receivers coach, but you gotta sneak the big dogs in there sometimes, and that's where I really think a guy like Mike Denbrock came in and really helped the situation. I'm sure Brown is great, but having Mike Denbrock, a guy who's gotten some of the best players in Notre Dame history, at least in recent memory. There's so many great guys that he was able to recruit to this team. If you look at Cole Kmet, you look at Ronnie Stanley's of the world, the Dalen Hayes, Chase Claypool, Miles Boykin. There's so Equimini St. Brown as well. There's so many great guys that he was able to recruit and bring over to this program. I think that it just shows that Meadows, this is the program that you want to be at. And I like what you talk about. You brought up, the hatred of a guy like Brian Kelly by probably a lot of Notre Dame fans. He did him wrong. There's a lot going on there. And I think that, that can come into the situation. Is Brian Kelly going to stay at LSU forever? We thought he was going to stay at Notre Dame. You never know what's going to happen there. So I think Notre Dame has some ammo. They had to pull out all the stops, but I'm glad to see that this guy is kind of flipping the script and potentially going to stay with the Fighting Irish because I think this guy could be huge for this program going forward.
And don't undersell flipping a guy from Brian Kelly, what that means for the culture in terms of the coaching staff and recruiting department at Notre Dame. Because everyone knows Brian Kelly is a great coach and a great recruiter. That's undeniable. Anyone who's bitter about him leaving, at least you have to acknowledge that. But being able to flip a massive recruit like this, that sends a message for the culture of the coaching staff, of the recruiting department that says, hey, listen, Brian Kelly, great coach, great recruiter, but we can do it without him, and we will do it without him. Pulling off a move like this, which it looks like Notre Dame's about to, is proof that they can get it done, and you're going to start seeing some of maybe these younger staffers really, truly believe that.